As you've heard Caleb say quite a bit here, Hisense TVs offer some of the best bang for your buck, especially the U7 line, which we're using today to dial in the best settings to get the most out of your Hisense TV. Welcome back everyone, Chris Hagan here, continuing to do my best to convince you to take the time to dial in your TV settings. Break the norm, because as we've heard from manufacturers, most people don't take the time to do anything beyond just turn it on and start watching straight out of the box without adjusting the factory settings. The first order of business is turning off the TV's eco mode. And if you've tried to do this before on this TV and had trouble finding this in the power settings, well, that's because it's not there. To turn off what's labeled energy saving, from the home screen, press the settings button on your remote, then navigate to picture, then general, then picture mode. You want to make sure it's not in energy saving. And while we're here, we might as well select our preferred picture mode. There's quite a bit to choose from here, but we recommend theater day, theater night, or filmmaker mode. The primary difference between the two theater modes is brightness, but that can always be further adjusted. In fact, we'll get to brightness in just a moment. But before we do, we're going to go back to the general picture menu and go down to Intelligent Scene, which allows the TV to make adjustments based on the content on the screen and make sure that is turned off. Then, under Automatic Light Sensor, we want to make sure that's off as well because it tends to do its job a little too well and darken the screen quite a bit based on the light in the room. Finally, on this menu, there's Content Type Auto Detection, which will switch your TV into Filmmaker or IMAX mode if it's tagged in the content, like a movie or a show on a streaming service. I'd recommend turning this off, that way you can force the TV into the picture mode that you've hand selected. Now let's get into TV brightness. What you need to remember is that you're going to set brightness for both SDR, Standard Dynamic Range, and HDR, High Dynamic Range. From the home screen, set the brightness for SDR content by pressing the settings button on your remote, going to picture, and then brightness. From there, make your adjustments to your liking. These settings will apply to your SDR content. For HDR, we just need to make sure we're playing some HDR content. This could be a show or a streaming service that has HDR programming, but if you're unsure, the easiest HDR source to find is a YouTube video, and in this example, we'll use Eugene Belsky's channel, which should look pretty familiar if you've watched any of our TV reviews. With the HDR content playing or paused, we've got a few things to do. First, if you haven't addressed this before, you may notice the picture is a little dark. That's because by default, the HDR picture mode is set to HDR energy saving. So the first order of business is to press the settings button, then picture, then general, and picture mode. And we'll change HDR energy saving to HDR theater, filmmaker, whatever your preference is. Now we're going to tackle brightness. So we'll go back to the picture menu, then brightness, and set it from there. But before we completely move on from brightness, there are a few more settings to change that can make your Hisense TV even brighter and punchier, which is especially nice for HDR content. Within that brightness menu, head on up to Local Dimming. This setting controls the backlight brightness to get better overall contrast levels. But another way of thinking of it is making the brightest areas of your TV even brighter. Also, how many times did I just say the word bright? Anyway, you'll notice that setting local dimming to high will increase overall brightness. If you want the absolute most out of the TV's HDR performance, set the local dimming to high and turn your brightness up to 100, as long as that's not too much for your eyes to handle. Finally, let's talk about motion smoothing. And this really comes down to personal preference. You may notice it, you may not. But if you do, it's kind of hard to unsee. Once again, this is found in the picture menu. We'll go down to clarity, then to motion enhancement, and again, we've got a number of options. You could turn it off entirely, but you've also got a few presets to pick from, including a custom setting which allows you to individually adjust judder reduction and blur reduction. I recommend playing around with a few different options to see what your personal preference is. So now that we've got your TV's picture where we want it, let's talk about a couple of settings that can make using your TV and any external devices easier as well. If you're adding devices like a soundbar or Blu-ray player or gaming system, It's usually pretty convenient to control everything with just your TV remote. To set that up, we're going to press the settings button, then go to all settings, then to channels and inputs, then make sure that HDMI control is toggled on. You also have options available to automatically power your TV and compatible devices on and off together. Finally, you'll want to set the HDMI format based on which devices are in which inputs. So under that inputs menu, go to HDMI format and make your choices accordingly. For gaming consoles that output high frame rates or 4K Blu-ray players, you'll want to set the input to enhanced format. And there you go. You're now set up for success with great picture quality on your Hisense TV. And if you want to make any more detailed changes, you now have a better understanding of where some of these options live and what it means to change them. Thanks so much for watching today, and as always, thanks for supporting this channel with a like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Feel free to send it to friends and family as well. Be sure to check out more of our how-to guides for other TV brands and just great tips in general, and we'll see you in the next video.